Today is my dad's birthday, and if you have been following along for a while, you know he recently passed away. So much of me and my approach to business is because of him, so it seems fitting to share one of his older professional photos. In issue number 10, I shared more about him and his philosophy of do your best, or DYB. In this issue, we're going to talk about what you may have done in Q1 and how to plan the rest of the year. In his honor, ask yourself, what does DYB look like for your privacy program for the rest of the year? And you might be listening to this after IAPP, but if you are at IAPP Global Privacy Summit, I hope that we were able to say a hello or an escalator wave or even have a cup of coffee. And if I missed you, please send me a note. I would love to catch up. We'll also be sending a summary of what we heard on the ground floor from regulators and industry pros, so be sure to check out LinkedIn for our latest summaries. It's hard to believe that we're at the end of Q1 in 2026, and if you're like most privacy and compliance professionals I talk to, your Q1 to-do list looks a little like a highlight reel of good intentions. The data mapping project that was going to finally get done this quarter, still in progress. The vendor contracts that needed updating, partially tackled. The employee training refresh, on the calendar for April. The policy review, everyone agreed it needed to happen. Nobody has started. This newsletter is not here to make you feel bad about that. It is here to help you actually do something about it. Here are the most common areas where we see companies slip, along with a suggested action step to course correct for the rest of the year. I'm calling it the 7 things that slipped in Q1 and what to do about each one. Data mapping and inventory, one of my favorites. Your data map or inventory is the foundation of almost every other privacy activity. Without it, you are making decisions in the dark. The next step, schedule a 60-minute working session with IT, marketing, and operations, or whomever is appropriate for you. Come prepared with 3 questions. What personal data do you collect? Where does it live? And how long do you keep it? You do not need a perfect map. You need a starting point. Vendor contract reviews. New vendors onboarded without data processing agreements are a compliance gap that compounds over time. The next step, pull a list of every vendor onboarded in the last 12 months. Flag any without a signed DPA. Pick the top 5 by data sensitivity and get agreements in place before the end of Q2. Employee training. High completion rates are not the same as effective training. If your content has not been updated since your last major policy change, it's already stale. Next step, pick one team that regularly handles personal data, such as customer service, marketing, or HR, and run a 15-minute refresher. It can even be a pre-recorded video, and run it this month. Role specific and brief beats company-wide and ignored every time. Follow on social to catch a podcast episode releasing in April, where as a guest, I talked about this exact topic of role-based training. Next up, risk assessments and PIAs. Every new product, tool, or process that touches personal data may need a privacy review. If your team has been moving fast, reviews have likely not kept pace. The next step, meet with each department to give you a list of new tools or projects launched in Q1. An old-fashioned meeting is the way to go to hear what's being worked on. Cross-reference that against any completed PIAs. And whatever is on the first list but not on the second is your Q2 assessment queue. Privacy notice updates. Your privacy notice is a public commitment. If your actual data practices have changed and your notice has not, those 2 things are out of sync. Regulators and customers, check these first. Anyone can see. Next up, read your current privacy notice as if you were a customer who knows nothing about your business. Does it accurately reflect what you actually do today? If not, flag the gaps and get legal or outside counsel involved to update it. Consumer rights request process. Can anyone at your company describe exactly what happens from the moment a request comes in to the moment it is fulfilled? Your next step, submit a test request to your own company. See what happens. How long does it take to receive a response? Who handles it? Where does it go? You will learn more from that exercise than any process document. And I encourage you to do this often. Policy reviews. Privacy policies, data retention schedules, and acceptable use policies all need regular review. If yours have not been touched in a year or more, they are most certainly behind. The next step, put a recurring 90-minute policy review on the calendar for June and December. Assign an owner. This is all it takes to turn a reactive scramble into a consistent habit. And I put together a handy dandy graphic pulling it all together that you can see by looking at our original newsletter, where it has data mapping, vendor contract reviews, employee training, risk assessments and PIAs, privacy notice updates, consumer rights request process, and number 7, policy reviews. Now, why is measuring your privacy program going to make this all easier? Metrics are important, and it's not just a reporting exercise. It's a practical tool for deciding where to focus first. And according to the Cisco 2026 Data Privacy Benchmark Study, 99% of organizations report measurable benefits from their privacy investments, with enhanced agility and innovation now leading as the top reported outcome. Privacy done well is not just a compliance cost, it is a business advantage. Here are a few other super handy stats from the report too. 99% of privacy delivers tangible value. 90% of AI reshapes privacy scope. 85% localization raises operational challenges. Only 12% of organizations describe their AI governance committees as mature and proactive. And 46% of organizations identify clear communication about data use as the most effective action to build customer confidence, outranking compliance or breach protection. I encourage you to check out the report. Companies can only manage what is measured, and the data that tells you where to focus is often already sitting in your systems. If you bring a Q1 update to leadership, connect these numbers to what they care about. A few simple numbers worth pulling as you plan Q2. How many consumer requests came in during Q1, and how long did they take to resolve? If response times are stretching, that is a process problem that compounds. How many projects required a PIA versus how many actually got one? That gap is risk exposure. What percentage of active vendors have current signed data processing agreements? If you don't know, finding out is a priority. And back to my Cisco study, it also found that 95% of organizations say robust privacy frameworks are essential for maintaining customer trust, and 94% say privacy investments make their organization more attractive to investors. Frame your program's performance around those outcomes, not compliance checkboxes. Staying ahead of what is coming is also very important. Even as you work through your Q1 backlog, the regulatory landscape keeps moving, and new states are passing laws, amendments, and new requirements are kicking in. Hello, CCPA privacy risk assessments. The most practical thing you can do right now is build a simple regulatory calendar, a living document that answers 3 questions. What laws or amendments apply to us? When do they take effect? And what do we need to do before then? Assign one person to own the regulatory calendar. Review it at the start of every quarter. Update it when things change. That single habit will do more to keep your program current than any reactive scramble after the fact. A few things belong on every regulatory calendar right now: state law amendments, rulemaking and guidance, and internal review dates. The rest of your year, in plain terms, can be described as focusing in Q2, closing those gaps Q1 left open. Pick 2 or 3 items from that list that carry the most risk and get them done before the end of Q2. Q3 is all about making your program more resilient. Build process documentation, cross-train so the program does not depend on one person. We talked about that in my last issue. And build the processes that let your program scale without breaking. And Q4 is looking ahead. And believe it or not, it'll be here before you know it. What do you need for 2027? What budget might be in play? What data from this year will support that ask? Set your goals now so that next Q1, you'll have something to point to. It will be here really quickly. Scary, I know. Here is a suggested roadmap. In this general newsletter to thousands of people, I can't tailor it to each company. I encourage you to take this approach and think about what's on your to-do list and how to get it done across the rest of the year. So a suggestion in Q2 is finish what Q1 left open, close the vendor DPA gaps, complete outstanding PIAs, update the privacy notice, and test your request process. In Q3, build process documentation, cross-train your team, automate what you can, mid-year policy review, refresh training. In Q4, planning ahead, map the 2027 regulatory calendar, build next year's budget ask, set program goals for 2027, a year-end policy review, and any board or leadership update. What's the bottom line? Privacy programs are never fully done. There is always another law, another vendor, another project that needs a review. That is not a failure of your program. That is the nature of the work. And as my dad would say, do your best at making it the most effective it can be. We love creating these privacy program roadmaps at Red Clover Advisors. If this feels overwhelming, which we hear often, and you need help or an external opinion, send me a note and let's talk. Q1 had its unfinished business. Q2 is your chance to change that. Pick one thing from the list above and do it this week, not next month, this week. What is the one privacy task that you have been putting off the longest? Reply with your comments. Let me know. Drop a note. I have a feeling you're not alone. And remember, if you're at IPP, come find me or an Atlanta event so we can say hi in real life.